Have you ever looked back at your childhood and wondered why you felt different? Why certain experiences set you apart, while others around you seemed to live a normal, carefree life? Maybe you carried burdens that no child should have to bear, or perhaps you noticed things, felt things, and understood things in a way others didn't. Maybe you were the kid who always had deep questions, the one who sensed things before they happened, or the one who couldn't just ignore suffering when you saw it. Was all of this random, or was there something greater at work? I want you to hear this loud and clear. Nothing in your life has been an accident. Not one tear, not one struggle, not one moment of feeling different. The world may have told you that you were just too sensitive, too serious, or too much for people to understand, but I want you to know God was marking you from the very beginning. He was setting you apart. He was shaping you even when you didn't recognize His hand. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah 1 verse 5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That means before the world had an opinion about you, before anyone else labeled you, God already had a plan. He already had a purpose, and He was already at work in your life, even in your earliest years. If you've ever wondered why your childhood felt different, why you experienced things that shaped you in ways you still don't fully understand, know this. It wasn't random, it wasn't meaningless, it was preparation. Because when God calls someone, He starts early. He doesn't wait until you're grown to begin the work. He plants the seeds from the very start. So today I want you to lean in. Open your heart, because we are about to uncover 5 powerful signs from your childhood that prove you were chosen by God. And when you see these signs, I pray that you will no longer question why you were different. Instead, you will embrace it, knowing that from the beginning, God has been writing a story with your life, a story of purpose, calling, and destiny. Let's dive in. Sign 1, you faced more obstacles than most kids. Have you ever wondered why your childhood seemed harder than others? Why, while other kids seemed to enjoy a carefree life, you were wrestling with battles that felt far too heavy for someone so young? Maybe you grew up in a broken home, where peace was rare, and love felt like something you had to fight for. Maybe you faced rejection, loneliness, or bullying that made you question your worth. Maybe you had to grow up faster than you should have, carrying burdens that most kids never even had to think about. Let this sink deep into your heart. Your hardships were never meant to break you. They were meant to build you. They were never a sign that you were forgotten, but a sign that you were chosen. God was shaping something within you that comfort and ease could never produce. While the world may see struggle as a curse, God sees it as training, because those He calls, He prepares, and that preparation often begins in childhood, long before we even understand what's happening. The Bible tells us in Romans 5, verse 3-4, "Suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." Did you catch that? Your suffering was never wasted. It was producing something greater within you, strength, resilience, and a hope that cannot be shaken. Think about Joseph in the book of Genesis. As a young boy, he had dreams of greatness, dreams of being used by God in mighty ways. But instead of stepping straight into that calling, what happened? He was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and later imprisoned for something he didn't even do. From the outside, it looked like his life was nothing but hardship, nothing but pain. But in reality, God was positioning him. God was preparing him. Every trial, every loss, every lonely night was shaping him into the leader he was destined to be. And I want you to know, the same is true for you. Every tear you cried, every moment you felt unseen, every battle you had to fight as a child, it wasn't for nothing. God was training you for something greater. He was toughening your spirit, sharpening your faith, and teaching you to stand strong no matter what came your way. Some of the strongest warriors in God's kingdom are those who faced battles early, because those who have suffered know how to endure. Those who have struggled know how to trust God even when life doesn't make sense. Those who have walked through the fire come out refined, ready, unshakable. So if your childhood was marked by pain, by trials, by obstacles that seemed unfair, don't let the enemy lie to you and tell you that you were abandoned. No, you were being trained. You were being strengthened. You were being equipped for the destiny that God had already placed on your life. Looking back, you might not have understood why you had to endure so much, but I promise you this, one day you will see it. One day you will look back and realize that every struggle shaped you, every hardship made you stronger, and every trial was a step in the direction of God's perfect plan for your life. So don't resent your struggles. Rise up and own them. Let them be proof that you were never weak. You were always chosen. You were being prepared for a future far greater than you could ever imagine. Sign 2, you had prophetic or meaningful dreams. Did you ever have dreams as a child that felt different? Dreams so vivid, so powerful, that they lingered in your mind long after you woke up. Maybe you saw things in your sleep that later happened in real life. Or you experienced dreams that carried a deep sense of meaning, even if you couldn't quite understand them at the time. Perhaps you even tried to tell others about them, only to be dismissed or told it was just your imagination. But what if I told you? It wasn't just your imagination at all. From the very beginning, God has used dreams as a way to communicate with his chosen ones. This isn't superstition. This isn't coincidence. This is how God moves. And if you had these kinds of dreams as a child, I want you to know that was not an accident. It was a sign, a confirmation that you were set apart for something greater. Let this truth speak to you. Just because people don't understand what God has shown you doesn't mean it's not from him. Just because others can't see it yet doesn't mean it won't come to pass. When God places something in your spirit, when he reveals something to you through dreams or visions, it is for a purpose, and sometimes that purpose takes years to unfold. The book of Acts 2 verse 17 confirms this truth, saying, "In the last days God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions." This means that spiritual sensitivity isn't reserved for adults. It starts young. If you had dreams that stirred something inside you, if you saw visions that felt too real to ignore, it could be a sign that God was already speaking to you before you even knew how to listen. Maybe you had a dream that warned you about something before it happened. Maybe you saw yourself doing something for God's kingdom long before you even understood what that meant. Maybe you've always felt a deep sense that your life had a purpose beyond what you could see. If so, don't dismiss it. Don't let the world convince you that it was just a random thought. God speaks in ways that go beyond human understanding. He places his truth inside us before we are even ready to grasp it. And I want you to know, if you experienced this as a child, it was not by accident. It means that God has placed something within you that is meant to be used for his glory. It means you have a sensitivity to his voice, a gift that is meant to be cultivated, not ignored. So if you've ever questioned why your dreams felt different, why they carried weight, why they stayed with you long after you woke up, know this: you were never just dreaming. You were being called. You were being shown glimpses of a divine plan that is still unfolding. And if this resonates with you, if something inside you is stirring right now, I want you to hold on to this truth. God doesn't waste anything. He doesn't give visions without a purpose. What He revealed to you, even in childhood, was intentional. It was a sign that you were chosen. Sign 3. Animals and troubled children were drawn to you. Did you ever notice how animals seemed to trust you, even the ones that were usually skittish? Did you find that other kids, especially those who were hurting, anxious, or struggling, felt safe around you? Maybe they opened up to you when they wouldn't open up to anyone else. Maybe they found comfort in your presence, even without you saying a word. I want you to understand something. This was not a coincidence. This was not random. This was a sign. People who carry God's light naturally attract the broken. It's not something they try to do. It's just who they are. It is the presence of Christ within them that calls out to those who are wounded, lost, or afraid. It's the same reason why, throughout Jesus' ministry, the broken-hearted, the outcasts, and even the children flocked to Him. They weren't drawn to His status or His miracles alone. They were drawn to His Spirit, His love, His light. Jesus Himself said in Matthew 5 verse 16, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." This means that when God places His light inside of you, it is meant to be seen. It is meant to draw others in. And sometimes, even before we realize it ourselves, that light begins to shine through us at a young age. If animals trusted you when they wouldn't trust others, it's because they sensed the peace inside you. If troubled children found refuge in your presence, it's because they felt the love of God flowing through you, even if you didn't realize it at the time. This is what it means to carry the presence of Christ, to be a place of safety in a world full of chaos. And hold on to this. Your ability to comfort others was never random. It was never just a personality trait. It was a sign. It was God's way of showing you that you have the heart of a healer, the spirit of someone called to bring restoration, to bind up wounds, to be a vessel of His love. Isaiah 61 verse 1 declares, "The Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor, to bind up the broken-hearted." This is not just a verse about Jesus. It is a call to all of God's chosen ones. If you were drawn to the hurting as a child, it is because God placed a gift within you, a gift of compassion, of healing, of carrying His presence to those who need it most. And maybe you've felt the weight of that. Maybe you've wondered why it seems like people always come to you with their problems. Maybe you've felt drained at times, wondering why you always seem to be the one offering comfort. But I want to remind you, this is not a burden. This is a calling. This is a sign that God has entrusted you with something special. He has placed a heart within you that reflects His own. So if you ever questioned why you were different, why you were the one others sought out in times of need, let me tell you right now, it was never about you. It was always about God working through you. And the fact that you carried this gift so early in life is just more proof that you were chosen for something greater. Hold on to that truth. Embrace it. Because the world needs what God has placed inside of you. And as we move forward, let's uncover even more signs that prove His hand has been on your life from the very beginning. Sign 4. You were highly sensitive to truth and hurt by dishonesty. Did you ever notice how deeply dishonesty disturbed you as a child? While others might have shrugged off small lies, pretended to believe something they knew wasn't true, or even participated in deception, you just couldn't do it. Maybe it made you physically uncomfortable to hear someone lie. Maybe you were the child who spoke up when no one else would, who stood your ground when the truth was on the line, even if it cost you something. I need you to understand this wasn't a weakness, it was a sign. It was evidence that God planted His standard of truth in you from an early age. The Bible tells us in Psalm 51 verse 6, "Surely you desire truth in the inner parts. You teach me wisdom in the inmost place." That deep sensitivity you had toward honesty, that inability to tolerate deception, was God's way of showing you that you were created to stand for something greater than this world's compromises. Throughout history, God has always placed a passion for truth inside those He calls. Look at Daniel. When taken to Babylon, he was surrounded by a culture that expected him to conform. He could have easily blended in, gone along with the crowd and kept quiet about what was right and wrong, but he refused. He wouldn't eat the king's food, wouldn't bow to false gods, wouldn't accept anything less than what he knew was true. And because of his stand for truth, God elevated him to places of influence. You see, when you're chosen by God, you don't just go along with the world. You see things differently. You feel things deeply. And I want you to know that sensitivity you had as a child, that instinct to call out what was wrong and stand for what was right, was never a flaw. It was a mark of your divine purpose. Maybe people called you too serious. Maybe you were told, "It's not a big deal," when you saw others lying or being dishonest, but deep down you knew it was a big deal. You knew truth mattered. And the reason it mattered to you is because it matters to God. He is a God of truth, and those He calls to lead, to speak, to make a difference, He shapes them early to recognize and uphold what is right. Psalm 25 verse 5 says, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation." If you were that child who craved truth, who longed for honesty, who felt deeply unsettled by lies, it was because God Himself was leading you, teaching you, molding your heart to reflect His own. And maybe that sensitivity has cost you. Maybe you've been labeled as too intense or too uncompromising. Maybe people have misunderstood your heart, thinking you were just being stubborn, when in reality, you were standing on the foundation God built within you. If that's you, keep this in your heart. Don't ever let the world convince you that your passion for truth is a flaw. It is your calling. It is the evidence that God has placed a mission within you to be a voice for righteousness, to stand firm when others fall, to be a light in a world that has learned to tolerate the darkness. Sign 5, people trusted you and you got things done. Did you ever wonder why people seem to trust you with responsibilities beyond your years? While other kids were just playing, maybe you were the one teachers relied on, the sibling who carried extra weight, or the friend others turned to for guidance. It wasn't an accident, it was training. Don't ignore what God is revealing to you. God was shaping you for leadership before you even knew what leadership meant. From an early age, God places the weight of responsibility on those He calls, not as a burden, but as a preparation. Think about David. Before he was king, he was just a shepherd boy, tending to sheep. It may have seemed like an ordinary task, but God was using it to teach him how to lead, how to protect, how to be faithful in the small things before he entrusted him with the kingdom. Luke 16 verse 10 says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." If people depended on you as a child, it was because God was developing something in you, something that could not be learned